I'm still working on my pantry, y'all. Let's can up some hash. Welcome to Whippoorwill Holler. I'm Miss Lori, and this is Mr. Brown. We live in the hills of Arkansas. We love the Lord. Keepers of the old way, but accept some of the new. We love to cook, and we love to eat. We love to garden. It's in our blood. It's how we stay sustainable and fill our pantry. We do a lot of canning and preserving. We live a sustainable life. We love our family. We work hard. And every once in a while, we like to dance. So y'all join us. Corned beef hash is generally made out of hay, corned beef brisket. But we all know how high brisket meat is. I actually found these on sale and they've been in my freezer for a while. So that's why I've really been wanting to get in here and make me some hash. Now, some people even make hash out of chuck roast, something like that. Just whatever you can afford and whatever you can find on sale. These were at Walmart, and they were fixing to go out of date's what it was. But they're still good. I want to get them cooked up, and I want to put some hash in my pantry because that's something that me and Danny can come in for an easy supper, or we can have it for breakfast with some eggs. I just think it'd be delicious. So this is what I'm using. And like I said, if you've got some chuck roast or something like that, you can also do it with that. This comes with, of course, your seasoning packet. Now I keep that kind of seasoning. I always have it in my pantry because I use it when I'm pickling anything. But I am going to be taking these out of the package. I'm going to rinse them off good. I'm one of them people, yes, I do rinse my meat. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. And I'm going to rinse my meat. I've got a pot back here big enough for both of these. This one right here is about 4 pounds. And this one is about 3 pounds. So I've got 7 pounds of meat right here. Now, I'm just going to tell you up front, I'm not sure how much meat it's going to take yet to do the quarts. Usually when I do this, it's in pints, but I'm going to do it in quarts this time. I've cut up 3 pounds of potatoes, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I cubed them up. They've been in the refrigerator in cold water. I cut them up, diced them up. I rinsed them good in cold water. Then I put them back in cold water and stuck them in the refrigerator overnight. And that does help cut down on the starchiness of your potatoes. So that was about 3 pounds of potatoes I cubed up. There's 7 pounds of meat. I'm going to take this out, rinse them. I'm going to put them, cover them with some water, and I'm going to let them boil. I'm going to let them boil for about an hour. I don't want them cooked all the way through. Just boil for about an hour. And also, the little packets that come in here are the pickling spice for the corned beef. I'm going to put them in there with my water. A lot of people don't do that. They don't want that taste, but I do. I like that taste in my corned beef hash. So that's just an option for you. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So let me get these out of the package, get them rinsed off, and in our big pot. I rinsed my meat off, and I cut just a little bit of the fat off, but I don't cut it all off because the fat is seasoning. And even once I can it up, if there's a little bit of a fat cap on top of my overall product, that's fine with me, because that's just more flavor. And when you dump it out to cook it and warm it up, your hash, that fat, you can use that to cook it in, to warm it up. So a little bit of fat don't bother me a bit. So I've got this on high, and I'm not going to put anything in here. Some people just put their meat in a pot, cover it with water, and boil it for an hour. They don't put any kind of seasoning in it, but I'm going to. And this is just optional because me and Mr. Brown do like the taste of the seasoning. So I'll let it boil in this. Let it season it up a little bit, and then I'll take it out after an hour. I will let it cool down to the point that I can cut it up, chop it up, and we'll get our jars ready. We'll get our potatoes ready, and the process is really easy. So let's let this boil. Now it won't be cooked all the way. It'll still be very tough, because this is a tough cut of meat, and it won't be done. It won't be fully cooked. But once you put it in your jars and you pressure cook it, it will be tender, and of course you're going to chop it up in small pieces too. So it'll be good and cooked and tender, and it'll be so good to open up a jar, throw it in a skillet with some eggs, and have you some good old hash. Okay, my brisket's cooked for an hour. There's my jars. I got them all cleaned and ready. Now, my jars are not going to be hot. It's not going to be hot pack. My meat is cooling, and I'm fixing to cut it up, and then I'm going to cut it up in smaller chunks, and I may even use my food processor to get it as small as I want it for my jars. Now, I'm keeping my broth. This is the water that my briskets were boiled in, and y'all remember I put the seasoning packs in there. Now I'm going to be using some of this in my my canning, in my overall product. I'm going to put probably less than half a cup. No, that's for pints, excuse me. I'm going to put less than half of a quart jar of this liquid, if I have enough in each jar. Now, this process, you don't have to cover it with water. You're going to have your potatoes, your cut up meat, a little bit of this broth, and what's going to happen is as it goes through its canning process and it pressures in there and it does the pressure cooking, your meat is going to make it some more broth, and even the fat on there is going to help bring up the level of the liquid in there. But like I said, this process, and I'll show you, it does not have to be covered with water to process it. So I'm going to strain this though. I don't want all the spices and stuff that I cooked in here. I don't want it in my jars, and I'll get some of this scummy stuff off because I do want this broth. So let me cut this up in chunks, and then I'm going to put it in the food processor to get it the size I want to can. My potatoes are cut up, and I took them out of the refrigerator, which they set all night in cold water. Now, some people would cut this in half. I'm going to leave mine about that size because they won't get mushy, and that's just the size potato that I would want to fry up in the morning with my my corned beef, my hash, with some eggs. That's just the size that I would want. You get too small with your potatoes and they can get mushy. But I would say that this is, that's almost an inch. And you want to keep them pretty much the same size too. But that's just up to you. You can do that just a little bit smaller if you want to. This is an easy process. Just get everything together and we'll get started. I got my 7 pounds of brisket cut up. Now, I put this in my food processor, and what I've done is I put it on chopped, not puree, and or if yours has got a pulse, so what I've done is I pulsed it about 5 times, and this is the texture that I come up with. Now, some of it is a little bit finer than others, but that's okay. But if you want your meat chunkier, don't put it in the food processor, or just pulse it just 2 or 3 times to get whatever texture, what size you want your meat. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix this up with my potatoes. Some people will layer. They'll put a layer of potatoes, a layer of meat, a layer of potatoes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to mix mine up together and put them in my jars. Now this is our potatoes and our brisket, our corned beef, and it's all mixed up now. And it does look like there's a lot of potatoes in here, and there's 3 pounds that I chopped up, but we love potatoes, so it's all good. And I'm going to start getting them in the jars, and we'll just go from there, and we'll discuss the procedure. And this is really going to be good too. When I cook up some cabbage, fry some cabbage, and be able to open a jar of this and throw that in with my cabbage, you talk about good stuff. Now some of your jars, when you get done, might have a little bit more potatoes than they do meat, or you may have a jar that's got a little more meat in it than it does potatoes. But if you'll eyeball it as you're putting your ingredients in there, you can kind of get it as even as you can. Now, anything that you're canning, your pressure canning, that has meat in it, you have to cook it, you have to pressure it the allotted time that it takes to can meat. It don't matter if there's potatoes in it or not, or a different kind of veggie. If there's meat in it and you're doing it in quarts, you've got to pressure can it for 90 minutes. If you're doing it in pints, you got to do it for 75. Now, where I live is 10 pounds of pressure. You need to check, if you're new at canning, make sure you check your sea level, and make sure that, if it's 15, whatever it might be, pounds of pressure. That's something you need to check for sure. I'm not going to absolutely pack this. I don't want it packed because I want the heat and the pressure to be the same in the middle as, as the outside for it to pressure can right. I think I can put just a little bit more in there. So you can see the layers, you can see what that looks like. I think that's plenty for me and Mr. Brown at any given meal. And he loves leftovers if there's ever any leftovers, but can't always count on that. So what I'm going to do is I got it level right here with the bottom of, that's right here on my jars, these ball jars, that's 1 inch right here. Now, I'm going to take my dipper, and like I said before, I'm not going to fill these up with the broth. Now, I strain this. That water that I cooked my brisket in, I strained all the gookies and the seasonings. I strained all that out. And I've got plenty of liquid. And we're not going to have to fill this up with liquid. You just don't have to do that. It's probably a little bit more than what I wanted, but we're going to go with that. We're going to debubble it. And that's all the juice I'm going to put in there, because it will make its own juice too. Just make sure you debubble it good. Sometimes that'll make you enough room to maybe put just a little bit more on top. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get the rest of these filled up. I've got me a little vinegar here, and I've went over the tops to make sure there's no the broth or the any kind of the fat off the meat or any kind of particles but I've went over every one of them. Now we're going to put our lids on. Now my pressure canner back here has got 3 quarts of water in it with a couple of tablespoons of white vinegar, and I put that in there because I have very limey water. I've had a lot of people ask me that are new to canning, when you're pressure canning, do you put the water over your jars like you do when you're water bath canning? No, you do not. My pressure canner calls for 3 quarts of water, and it only goes up when you put your jars in there. Once you get them all in there, they're going to be about up to here, but the water will not cover the top of your jars like if you're water bath canning. So I'm going to put my lids, my rings on, finger tight. And since my water's not hot, I'm just going to turn around and put my jars in. So everything's going in at room temperature. My meat was at room temperature. My potatoes was at room temperature. The liquid that I put in here at room temperature. So it'll all have to be brought up at the same time. Now, if you get a little bit of siphoning, that's not going to hurt anything. That's called transfer liquid, transfer siphoning, and it will happen if you're canning a whole canner of meat, as long as you know you don't have a busted jar or a lid that didn't seal or one that buckled. Okay, I got 7 quarts in my canner. I've got my heat on, and we're going to let this, right here is my valve where you'll see the steam come out. It does it by itself. The weight's already on here. I've got a 10-pound weight. This is a Denali pressure canner. and I really like it. It's a 23 quart. But and what it'll do is it'll vent for 10 minutes, and then it'll go straight to start its pressure, its pounds, I mean. So I'll watch it, and once it gets to 10 pounds, I will adjust my fire to make sure that it stays there. But if you adjust your fire and you watch your pounds per pressure start going down, or you walk off from it and it's way down here, you're going to have to start all over. You're going to have to come back up to your 10 pounds, 11 pounds, or 15, wherever you're supposed to be at. But I'm at 10 pounds of pressure. So, and once it gets to 10 pounds, and sometimes it wants to hang it right there at 11 pounds. It's always done that, especially with my Presto canner. And that's okay. This thing right here will start doing a little dance every once in a while, and it'll stop, then it'll dance a little while, and it'll stop, and that's what I want to hear. And then I'll start timing it for 90 minutes since it's quart jars. And when that gets done, we'll let it cool down. We'll let it come all the way down to 0. And even after that, I'll wait a while before I open my canner up. And when I open my canner up, I always open it up and turn the lid up away from my face. And then we'll get our jars out and look at them. I've never, ever, ever had any issues pressure canning. I've never known anybody myself that has. I've heard some of y'all that are still scared to pressure can, and I'm not laughing at you, because I understand, because you know somebody, your mama, your aunt, your grandma, somebody, that something happened with the pressure canning accident. I've never seen it or heard of it in my lifetime. But anyways, if you follow the directions and you just be very careful, pressure canning is not it is intimidating, but don't let it intimidate you. It's a really easy whether if you're doing it to fill your pantry, or you're doing it as a hobby, or whatever, however you're doing it or why you're doing it, it's pretty satisfying too. So we'll wait for this to vent, and then we'll get up 10 pounds of pressure, and then we'll start counting. Meanwhile, 90 minutes, I've got a lot of housework to do. Well, I hope you enjoyed this canning recipe and this canning session. 7 quarts here, 14 pints there. You're going to fill up your pantry pretty quick. Remember, you don't have to do it all at once. Do a little bit at a time, and you'll see how quickly that your walk-in pantry does fill up. It's the next day. Our jars are cleaned. I put them all up in the pantry. I decided I'm going to get one out, and I'm going to show you one way that we eat our corned beef hash. You can look at this jar, and there's not much, any kind of much fat in here. There's a little bit, but not much. But I still want to put just a little bit of butter in my pan. So we're going to open this up. It smells like corned beef hash. And pour it right in our pan. Now there was just a little bit of juice in it, and I really didn't want to dump the juice out. I like that juice. So what I'll do is I'll let it cook. I've got it on about medium-high heat right now, and I'm just going to let it cook like that, and let that little bit of juice, let it go ahead and just evaporate out. And I'm going to put a little bit of salt. Now, I didn't put no salt in it, if y'all remember when I canned it, so a little bit of pepper. And then after that, all this juice evaporates, I'll let it cook just a little bit longer, and then we'll add our eggs to it. And that's going to be our supper with a little bit of toast and maybe some healthy fruit on the side. You just want to cook them juices out and then brown your taters up just a little bit. Get you some eggs and pour that over that. I put a little bit of pepper and a little bit of salt. You don't want too much. And my eggs. And just let your eggs cook and scramble. You can even put after your eggs are done, you can put you a little bit of cheese on top. Put you a little bit of jalapenos in here if you like stuff a little bit spicy. Boiling this in that little bit of water and the spices was just enough for that corned beef taste with your meat. And then putting it in there with the potatoes gives the potatoes a really good taste too. So you know, when you go to the store and you buy that canned corned beef hash, that's what we got right here. We're just going to cook them eggs. I'm going to turn my heat off, and that's pretty much done. Our supper's done. Make me a little bit of toast. And we're going to eat. That was a fast supper. Going to be a good supper. Another way of cooking this I would do with this corned beef hash is I would fry me up some cabbage, and then I just open up a can of the hash and cook it, and you got a meal right there with your cabbage and your potatoes and your meat. Be a good dinner. Well, here's our supper. The corned beef hash and eggs. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Make you some corned beef hash, can it up. You've seen how easy it was. I'm going to be putting some more up in my pantry. And I'll probably be putting some up even without the potatoes. It'll be the same process, just to make sandwiches and stuff out of. So y'all like and subscribe. Come back to us, because you know we're always going to be doing something on this homestead. What do you think about that corned beef hash? I know you like stuff like this.
I really like stuff like that.
Anything that involves breakfast or, you know, mixed up with some eggs, he likes it. So
I make that corned beef hash out of a can.
I know you have.
This is better.
So I'll be making up some more for sure, especially if I can find some of that meat on sale. So y'all have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see y'all next week. Mr. Brown will see you. He may be doing something.
I'll be doing something, right?
Something around here. God bless everybody. We'll see you.